Have you ever seen a postcard? It flies high in the sky with white clouds and blue sky. Hello everyone. Welcome back to the beginner's photography lesson. Today, I will explain how to take an amazing cloud with a camera. The main subject is 1. Shooting clouds and sky. 2. How to set up my camera. 3. Required camera equipment. The setting for shooting clouds. 1. Set the manual mode. 2. Set the aperture to f9.0. 3. Reduce exposure compensation to exposure value -2/3. 4. Set the white balance to color temperature mode. How do you use exposure value on a camera? You can use the exposure value button in programmed auto, shutter priority, or aperture priority modes. In P mode, the camera will adjust the exposure value by changing the shutter speed and/or the aperture. In S or TV mode, since you set the shutter speed manually, it will adjust the aperture to compensate. What does exposure compensation do? Exposure compensation is used to make a photo brighter or darker by changing the exposure at a value selected by the camera. In the P mode, S mode, and A mode, the camera automatically adjusts the settings for optimal exposure. Meeting good weather. In general, blue skies and invisible weather are the days after heavy rains. When it rains heavily, all the dust in the air is washed away. So it is highly likely that your personal sky will become blue and clear right after the rain. If possible, choose a cloudy day. The water vapor that is generated as the ground heats up in summer is in the atmosphere, causing an unusually large amount of cloudiness. You can take a picture of the blue sky during the day, and then the evening sunset on a cloudy day. Morning and evening time. Why is the sky blue? Because of the blue region of the 7-colored visible light that scatters before the sun. Take the sun with your back. When you take a picture of the sky with the sun behind it, the light passes through the photographer and spreads evenly across the sky and the subject opposite. Good for coloring. This is an exception for backlit shooting intentionally. If you want a dark blue color, set the exposure to under. It's common to say you have to press the shutter when you combine aperture and shutter speed for proper exposure. It is better to expose 1 or 2 steps under the sky rather than proper exposure. In general, the color of the subject tends to appear darker when underexposed. If you think about the natural color flying off when the exposure is over and the photo rising white, you'll notice that the color darkens when it's under. However, in this case, other subjects on the ground other than the sky may become too dark. So in fact too much exposure is not allowed. Decide by the feeling or judgment of the picture and the exposure that the camera's exposure meter indicates appropriate. Try HDR shooting or post-correction applications. Tighten the aperture to gain depth of field. The camera's aperture is the gateway to light. If this door is open wide it will receive more light compared to the same time, and if this door is slightly open it will receive less light. In this way, the aperture controls the amount of light. By adjusting the aperture, when you tighten the aperture, it receives less light. However, for proper exposure, it requires a longer period of light than opening the aperture. Tightening the aperture widens the depth, the focus area of the photo. It is said that the focus area becomes wider. This means that even if you don't receive a lot of light at once, the color is better because the light is scattered for a long time. Usually, the aperture is tightened to around f8 to f11, which is the recommended value to ensure adequate depth of field, without loss of quality. Let's use the power of auxiliary tools, such as CPL filter or Photoshop. When you take a picture, you can get a circular polarization filter. And after taking a picture, with the help of Photoshop, you can get a picture that is almost the same as the sky blue you saw with your eyes. The CPL filter can take a deeper color of the sky, while properly blocking the reflected light. The UV filter, which is usually inserted when you buy a lens, actually has a larger purpose for lens protection. So it is recommended to use a CPL filter. The best way to this: when the lens is 100 mm, set the lens to 1/100th seconds or more. And when the lens is 85 mm, set it to 1/85 seconds or more. You can get a picture without blurry pictures. The best way to this: it will be useful to obtain a good tripod and shutter release remote, wired or wireless. It's easier to learn about photography and cameras if you can attend community college photography group classes or college classes. Today, introduced the amazing Take Clouds photos. I hope this will be a good answer for those who are wondering how to take clouds pictures. I have explained how to practice as simple and easy as possible. But if you understand this, camera shooting seems not that difficult. In the next video, I will show you some more informative aspects of photography.